Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Master the World's monthly webinar. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Lee Ming Stroh. I am the founder and CEO of Master the World, and with me today is Tim Gaiser, Master Sommelier. I'll give everyone a moment to start and then have Tim maybe talk about where you are, what are you doing these days? How's it going, Tim?
It's going great. Thanks, Li Ming. It's fall here in New Mexico, and just fall is the most beautiful time of year. It's finally cooled off, so now the days are in the 70s, the nights in the 40s, the leaves are golden, the cottonwood trees near the river. Yeah, it's just a great time of year to be here. And we're turning seasons, so we're going to get into more red wine drinking weather, which I think is exciting.
It is very exciting. I was just talking to our next speaker about the selections, and he's going festive and he's going red, warm reds. So, absolutely a lot of fun. And I see a lot of names that I've known well over the years here. I thank you, old subscribers, if I could call you that, for being loyal and coming in, but also for the new folks who are joining us today. Really excited to have you. Thank you for those of you who are telling us where you're coming in from. It's a warm hug to let us know and to see where everybody is coming in from. And for me, it's great to know that you've received your kits. So absolutely exciting to see that. Make sure when you write to everyone so that everyone can see your comment. Tim and I obviously will take any comments that you want to tell to the panelists as well. But if you have a question, throw it out there. You'll see that folks are eager and ready to answer and give their opinions as well. Leaderboard, if you're interested, it is there. You go to start tasting on our website and you can enter in the kit number. You have the tasting notes, you have your grids, if you will, but also you'll get to keep a record online of your own tasting results if you're interested. And of course, Q&A, don't be afraid to ask. I'll be the first one to ask questions. Drop it into the chat or drop it into the formal Q&A. Both work. Gets faster answer. Tim is one of the rare breeds of people who can multitask and do chats at the same time as he talks.
We'll see.
I have found. Tim, it is pretty amazing. I work with a lot of different presenters, and you're right
Yeah.
about the only one who can do that very flawlessly.
I think it's a restaurant business thing where it's a rare form of maybe attention deficit disorder where you can do a lot of things in a short period of time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, we have a lot to get through today, so I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that everyone is on kit 171A. 171A. And let's see. Today's session is cause and effect, Tim. Tim is joining us once a quarter. Very excited to have him. This is the second volume in the series to go with his book. Tim, tell us why you picked cause and effect, or I could just kick you off right now.
Yeah. Well, cause and effect to me, and regardless of what organization you're studying for, be it the WSET, International Sommelier Guild, Wine and Spirits Education Trust, or the Master Sommelier curriculum, it doesn't really matter. There are several things that map across to any wine certification organization, and they're just pillars to being a really good professional taster. Cause and effect is one of them, and people don't talk about it very much. Impact compounds, which we've talked about before, that subset of aromas and flavors that are really critical for students to know in terms of identifying wines in a blind tasting exam, but also professionals for judging a wine's quality and typicity. And then the last thing is structure, just being really hardwired into a wine structure and being consistent with it. And yeah, so we're going to talk about cause and effect today. And what I'd like it to be kind of your mantra going forward, right? It's the underpinnings of all your tasting, and it's literally looking at a glass of wine and saying why. Why does the wine look the way it does, smell the way it does, taste the way it does, and even feel the way it does on the palate? Okay. And I mentioned cause and effect relationships are invaluable. And if you think about it enough, it becomes a habit. It becomes internal. And every time you look at a wine and you examine it, even for a few seconds, you have expectations about, the structure of the wine, the fruit categories and families and that kind of thing. Okay. And well, yeah. So again, those are the three pillars of blind tasting to me: cause and effect, knowing why; impact compounds, connecting those to classic grapes and wines; and then finally the structure. And the structure, as Madeline has said, before, many times it doesn't lie. Structure really is the bones of the wine, and it tells a really big story, but you have to listen and pay attention to it. Okay, next slide. All right, so what is cause and effect? What does it come from? Well, there's three primary places, okay? And I just want to step back for a second and tell you that I'm going to front load this with some information for about the next 10 to 12 minutes. And there's a lot. The good news is it's all in my book, Chapter 8. If you don't have the book, you should buy it. As your attorney, I think you should get it. Anyway, if you don't want to do that, go to my blog, timgaiser.com, or just Google Tim Gaiser blog cause and effect, because the blog post with it will come up and you can read it there. Okay? That is to say, there's a lot of information. We want to get to the wines, but I do need to cover it. Okay, so what are the three sources of cause and effect? Well, the first one is the vineyard, right? And it's huge. That could be the timing of the harvest, how ripe the fruit is, the condition of the fruit. Does it have botrytis? Is there Brettanomyces in the soil? In which case, it's going to get on the plants and it's going to get in the winery environment and in the wine. Also, next would be grape variety chemistry, things like pyrazines, bell pepper, terpenes, flowers, rotundone, white pepper or black pepper, or TDM, that petrol fusel thing in Riesling, okay? And next up, winemaking practices. And this, winemakers can really put an indelible stamp on a wine. And it could be in the form of lees contact, putting the wine through malolactic, the use of oak, of course. And in certain camps, carbonic maceration for Beaujolais Village and Beaujolais Nouveau. And if you're using carbonic maceration or whole cluster, you've got stem inclusion because you've got whole clusters of grapes held together by stems. In terms of finishing off the wine, you've got fining, filtering to clarify it and also stabilize it. And then there are certainly more winemaking practices like acidulation, dealcoholization, things like that we can talk about. Okay? All right, next slide. And I think we break this down. But before we get started, okay, so this is your homework assignment, everybody. No matter what grid you're using, what organization, there's a presupposition here. It's unspoken. You need to master whatever tasting grid you're working with, okay? I mean, that's a requirement, okay? You have to know it so well that you always know it next. And my assignment to you is this. Be able to explain the grid to someone who's not in wine. So since your Aunt Bernina from Des Moines down, or call her and say, hey, I'm going to tell you about my tasting grid. So you do it without a glass of wine in hand. So you can explain to them, well, when the wine smells like this, it's this. When the wine is clear, it means it hasn't been fined or filtered. And those things mean this. Because the deal is, if you think about it, all of you out there in Zoom land listening to me want to be in this chair someday. You want to be in the position of teaching whatever tasting grid or method you work with. And to do that, you have to know it so well that you can teach it, because if you can teach it, it's in long-term memory. Yeah, and that means you always know what's next. And that's where you need to get to with your exams, okay? And then there's part two. So once you can define and memorize your grid and just tell somebody about it, then get behind every criteria on the grid you use and explain cause and effect. Explain why. Explain, well, clarity means the wine is clear, and it's clear because they fine and filter the wine. And they do it because they want to stabilize it and they want to make it pretty, but they want to make sure it's not going to re-ferment or spoil in the bottle. Okay, so that's my challenge to you. I want you to do that, and you don't have to do the whole shooting match, but pick a good friend and say, hey, you got to help me out here. I'm trying to learn this tasting grid so well that I can teach it. So I'm going to spring it on you, and then buy them a drink or a glass of wine afterwards, and they'll be happy. Okay. All right. Next step. So let's start with the site and cause and effect. Okay. And the question here is, why does the wine look the way it does? What impacts color for white wines and red wines? We talked about clarity. That's all about fining and filtration. You do it to clarify the wine so it's stable and you can ship it around the world and you can sleep at night if you're the winemaker. And also, it just cleans up the wine, makes it stable. So brightness then is the properties of light reflecting in the glass. The less color, the more light, right? And the lighter the color in the glass, the more light. If you fine and filter, it reflects more light. With red wines, the depth of color has to do with the grape variety or how ripe it got, okay? Okay, so secondary, well, where are we? So primary colors, we're going to get to white wines, okay? And these four things I want you to consider, and we will every time we look at white wines in this set. Is the wine old? Okay, we're talking about some form of oxidation. Next, the use of oak. in which case that's a very gentle form of oxidation over time. The wine gets darker. Botrytis, that mold where the spores pierce the skins, that's a form of oxidation. And that's going to have all sorts of aromas and flavors attached. And then finally, if you leave a white wine on the lees long enough, yeah, it's going to get darker in color and it may even turn orange, hence orange wines. Yep. All right, for red wines, grape variety has a lot to do with what color a wine is. Thinner skinned grapes like Pinot Noir versus thicker skinned grapes like Shiraz, Syrah, and Cabernet. Also, the harvest timing. The riper you get, the thicker the skins get, the more color you get. And also age, over time, a red wine losing color because the pigments, the color, and the tannin precipitate out as tannins. And then certainly winemaking techniques. I mentioned carbonic maceration with Beaujolais. That's where you're getting color out of the skins, but you're not getting tannin. Okay, same goes for whole cluster fermentation. Those are very different techniques, though. Okay, secondary colors, the green in white wine. Okay, that's age. That's also cool climate. Some people think it's the unripe portions of the grape, as in chlorophyll. I've never seen that proven. Red wines, the rim variation, what color is the edge or rim? If it's pink, it has to do with age. It could also have to do with color. I mentioned carbonic maceration, whole cluster. Those tend to give you a purple-pink rim just because they're getting all the color out of the wine, but not tannin. Okay? And then finally, rim variation with red wines, same kind of idea. All right, let's finish up sight by talking about other things you could see. If you see bubbles in the wine, could mean that the wine wasn't fined and filtered, or it could mean that CO2, which is a preservative, was added to the bottle when the closure was put in, okay? If you see sediment, the wine could be old. It could be unfiltered. Or if it's tartrates, it means that the wine wasn't fined and filtered very much. And you see tartrates quite a bit, and they're odorless and tasteless, and they're just fine. Even though customers at the table kind of freak out if you're in a restaurant and they see them, you have to talk them off the ledge, okay? Finally, the tears and legs, and this is a perfect example of something that ultimately not that important, but it certainly sets up expectations for what you're going to smell and taste in the wine. First of all, slow moving tears that are thick could mean higher alcohol, could mean residual sugar, or the last thing, it could be dry extract. So dry extract is technically chemist term particulate matter in solution. For wine, what it means, old vineyards, low yields, and less juice to skin ratio, which means it's just richness and their particulate matter in the wine, right, from the grape skins, right? So you have really high quality Rieslings, Gruner Veltliners, Pinot Gris, etc., that look like they should have high alcohol because they're really rich and viscous, and they're not, okay? And then finally, staying with the tiers for red wines, that's all about pigments and thicker skinned grapes like Cabernet and Malbec and things like that. Okay, next one, let's talk about nose. For me, of course, in my universe, smelling is the most important part of tasting. First thing is all these things that can go wrong. There's a shopping list. TCA, of course, is what happens when mold and chlorine get together, right? No buenos, they say in New Mexico. It smells moldy, musty, like old books and magazines, every bag of baby carrots, right? Next up is Brettanomyces, and again, that's a yeast. Lives in the vineyard soil. Smells like leather, earthy, barnyardy, and then, there's a whole scale for it. At the extreme end, it's like a world of Band-Aids and too many hamsters in a cage, right? Yeah, and then it can be very rich and earthy and complex. I was lucky on the spot on Wednesday during the certified exam when we were finishing up, and somebody poured me a splash of 2005 Chateau Mouton Rothschild, and they blinded me and they asked me, what is this? And I said, it's expensive. That's what it smells like. It's really expensive. As a matter of fact, the price the guy was offering the buyer at this high-end steakhouse was $1,000 a bottle. So yeah, it was really expensive, but to me, it had a lot of Brettanomyces. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 4. Anyway, so that's Brett, but context shows you can have a really expensive wine with quite a bit of Brett. Volatile acidity, VA, smells like vinegar, balsamic. That's a byproduct of fermentation, but obviously you expect it in some wines versus others, okay? Sulfur compounds, that's Pandora's box. There's a lot to be said here. Obviously, you often smell sulfur in wines, SO2. In fact, one of these wines has SO2 in it. That's pretty, at least when I first opened and smelled and tasted it. But it's a preservative. You got to use it to make good wine, or you got to be really good at what you do, and not many people are good at it. And not using sulfur. Okay, but there are other sulfur compounds that are universally considered false. If you smell H2S, which is rotten eggs and sewer gas. Un problemo. That's a problem with fermentation. You rarely smell it, but you do. Mercaptan smells like onions and garlic, and that is fermentation and sulfur type aromas, and you get that in Sauvignon Blanc, both in New Zealand and in white Bordeaux. Okay, and then excess SO2 you might smell. It's like matchstick, and you just know that they probably put in a lot of sulfur right at the time of bottling. Okay, all right, let's move forward. And we're about halfway through the information spiel, so we can get to the wines. Okay, we can go next one. All right, so in terms of the nose, the intensity of the aroma, that's asking how much and what causes it to be a little versus a lot, delicate versus powerful. Well, grape varieties, Pinot Grigio versus Alsace Gewürztraminer. The timing of the harvest, riper fruit, more alcohol, more intensity. And then certainly winemaking, especially the use of oak. Age, as implied. Yeah. So what causes age? Time in bottle or time in barrel and bottle, right? And dried fruit, et cetera, et cetera. Or you could have oxidative winemaking, which you do in certain kinds of wines, like Italian wines, like old school Barolo Barbaresco, old school Rioja Gran Reserva, things like that. And then, of course, the fruit of the wine has to do with the grape chemistry, how ripe the grapes got, and then what happened during fermentation. And that, even down, if you want to get geeky, has to do with the yeast cultures that they're using. The quality of the fruit, and I'll just say this in a second, sometimes I'm reading what students are writing, okay? And they get hung up, they smell kumquat, and they think, oh my God, this must be New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, it's got kumquat. And the deal is, the fruit in and of itself, the kinds of fruit, not that important. Fruit quality is important, yeah, because that speaks to the timing of the harvest. Could be botrytis, could be dried fruit, could be a grape where the fruit doesn't ripen unevenly. Yeah, you've got really raisinated fruit and green fruit in the same wine. That happens. That's an important key. Okay, next slide, please. All right, non-fruit here is the main event because a lot of impact compounds are here. A lot of that is grape chemistry. We mentioned, things like rotundone, pyrazines, etc. You could have vineyard influence as far as Brettanomyces or botrytis, and then certainly winemaking, least contact carbonic and all that good stuff. But again, knowing why behind. Earth and minerals is the impact of the vineyard and the yeast cultures that are present in the microbiome. That's what it is, right? So, but also the important thing for you as students recognizing that earth and mineral are there, being able to describe them, but also weighing in each hand, okay, we got more fruit and winemaking, or do we have more earth and mineral? Okay, because one's going to take you to Europe and one is going to take you to other places. That's where you want to get to. And then finally, with oak aging, being able to discern certainly American oak, which smells like bourbon, versus French oak, the age of the barrel, less impact over time, and then the size of the barrel. Where a large cooperage, like they use for German Riesling and Alsace wines, it's very inert because the barrels are big and they're old. Okay. All right. Dryness or sweetness, the palate. We're now to the palate. In the palate, we're going to do two things. We're going to confirm everything we smelled, and then we're going to do the structure. And dryness, sweetness is first, okay? And just knowing how could a wine possibly have residual sugar? Because you stopped fermentation somehow. You either added brandy and it's a fortified wine, you sterile filtered it, in which case the alcohol is going to be lower because the sugar didn't get all fermented. Or what else? So it's a particular wine style, like Mosel Riesling, like Vouvray Demi-Sec, things like that. Okay, body's up next. You're asking yourself, why is the wine light-bodied versus full-bodied? And the answer is the ripeness of the fruit, which will give you alcohol plus glycerin together, they go together, or the presence of residual sugar because you had to stop fermentation somehow, or dry extract, the quality of the fruit that gives you richness without giving you alcohol, okay? And what we're going to do now, then you go through and you confirm the fruit, non-fruit, earth, and wood, okay? And you're confirming it, asking yourself if anything changes, and if not, go ahead, and if so, note it. All right. And finally, we'll do the structure, and we'll get started tasting. So acidity. What kind of grape? High acid grape, like, let's say Riesling versus Gewürztraminer, which is lower acid. The climate, how ripe did it get? Because the riper it gets, the more alcohol and the less acid. And then, along with that, was the wine acidulated because it's a really warm climate wine where to balance it, they had to add acid. Okay? Alcohol, again, has to do with the ripeness of the fruit, which has to do with the place, or a really warm vintage. Or you're chaptalizing. You're adding sugar to the must, which I guess is done not as much as it was 30 years ago. You can also remove alcohol, and it's done all the time, especially in red wines. Okay, you're using a cross-flow filter, or you're using reverse osmosis, but you're taking it out. It's like a dosage in champagne where you want to get the sugar level just right. They will do finding trials and also alcohol trials with red wines to where they get it by the 10th of a degree to where they get it exactly where they like it. Okay, phenolic bitterness is there because there's skin contact with semi-aromatic and aromatic grapes. Tannin, three kinds, right? You got grape variety tannin, right? Some grapes more tannic than the others. And then you've got oak tanning, of course, from wine having spent time in barrels. And then finally, if you've got a wine that went through carbonic or whole cluster, you got grape stems and you have stem tannin. Okay, so we will look for those every time we taste a red wine in this set. Amanda Quintara, yes, reverse osmosis was used, I think, a lot more 20 years ago, but now cross-flow filtration, similar principle, totally different filter. And that's where wine is sent across. Imagine a table that's about 10 feet long, and it's a huge filter pad, and the pores are like micron level practically, and you're forcing wine across it. And you can take out alcohol, you can take out water, you can do all sorts of things, and it's done. Okay, so let's get started. Wine number one. Here we go. All right, you ready? Seatbelts on. This is going to be good. This is a really good flight of wines. Okay, so let's take a look. And Li Meng, notice, is holding it up.
Yeah.
First of all, just to note, none of the wines are straw colored. They're all yellow or deeper. Okay, what could that mean? Wines could be old, oak, botrytis. Who knows? We're going to find out. This wine to me is a medium yellow color. It's got some green. The combination means to me the wine's relatively young, but maybe it's seen some oak or maybe a little bit more time or botrytis. We're going to find out. What else about it? Well, it's clear. There's no sediment, etc. And my glass tears legs. They form pretty quickly and they come down and they're not very thick. So I'm going to call the viscosity medium. Okay, so I totally jumped over my questions here. We're looking for the most important non-fruit things and why, and we're going to describe the wine's structure. And then I'm going to ask you what dominates the wine, fruit or earth mineral. Okay, all right, now let's go to the nose, to the main event. Okay, interesting. So first of all, the wine is clean, ... But to me, and I'm sensitive to sulfur, there's definitely some sulfur here. Okay, it smells like almost like a matchstick or a wet sweater. Okay, for whatever the unacquired taste. Okay, there's beyond that there is a combination of ripe and tart fruit, and the ripe fruit is like Fuji apple, almost yellow apple, and then there is the tart fruit, maybe a little really ripe pear. There's some Meyer lemon and really tart lemon. So maybe, yeah, some orange. And so we've got a combination of really ripe orchard fruit and sweet and tart citrus fruit, okay? Maybe even a little peach in there too. Above the glass, there is honey, right? And honeysuckle and white flowers. And what else about it? There's a little bit of very gentle or herbal type things like lemongrass and verbena. And kind of like it reminds me of salad greens. Yeah, but it's not full on screaming pyrazines. There's that honey thing, ripe fruit. It's got a really pronounced chalky minerality with some mushroom. And if there is oak here, it's used. Okay, so all those things together, quite a bit going on. Let's taste it. Let's see what we got. So we're going to taste it, and we're going to confirm those things and talk about the structure. Wow. Okay. I taste it again. You might do the same. Unless you were pre-gaming, this is your first sip of wine. Okay. So, like many wines, it tartans up on the palate. Okay. A lot of wines do that. What can we say about it? There's still ripe and tart fruit. I can actually taste honeysuckle and honey. So flowers as terpenes, the chemical compound. Yeah. If I smell and taste that, I think semi-aromatic grape. The slight botanicals, it's really chalky in the middle. It's also phenolic. It's got the almond skin bitterness in the finish. The acid, I feel it on my front teeth. So it's a grape that has higher acid in terms of cause and effect. It's also a grape, someplace where it's a moderate climate. It's not very ripe. Okay, maybe the alcohol here is like 12.5 or 13%. It is, I feel this sulfur here. And again, I'm sensitive to it, so you may not get it. So it's a grape that keeps sulfur to me, which is a cause and effect thing I'll talk about. And the finish is really long. This is really high quality wine. The dryness is dry, not bone dry, but it's dry. I get a little tiny bit of residual sugar on the finish. It's really well balanced. It's an adult sweet tart. It's got,
Mhm.
it's got really ripe and tart fruit and acid that is screaming. And the alcohol again is moderate, not even moderate plus. Yeah. And Maria says, yes, honey and honeysuckle. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So those are
Tim,
important parts.
Tim, you went over the word really quickly, and for those of us who are not as familiar, when you say phenolic, what
Okay.
exactly is
Yeah.
phenolic?
Hey, Meng, thanks for bringing that up. Okay. So phenolic bitterness. Okay. So grape skins, they've got hundreds of compounds in them. And a lot of them, over 300, are called phenols. And the way they make themselves known, if you leave the juice of a white grape in contact with skins for any length of time, and the skins are thicker and there's phenols, then you start to leach out those phenols. And to us, they taste bitter. Okay. Tannin for red wine is a phenol. It's a phenolic compound. So for me, okay, take a sip and hey, it's Friday. You're probably not driving. Hold it in your mouth for about 5 seconds, 7 seconds. Notice, yes, it's really high. And when you taste it after you swallow it, it's bitter. Yeah. So you get all this fruit happening, sweet tart, acid, mineral, chalky, and then the sequence finishes with really screaming acidity and yeah, phenolics. So that means you got flowers and you got acid like this, and you've got phenolic bitterness. So it's a semi-aromatic grape. Okay. So look, those are your choices. So look at them, and by process of elimination, narrow it down to what you think it could be. Okay. And usually, when you look at a list, it's what the grape slash wine is not versus what it is. Okay. So if you're not sure what it is, rule things out.
Yeah. So, Tim, we've had the poll up for a while,
Yeah.
and given the speed or lack of participation, I think people are a little confounded by the wine. So, I want to
Yeah. You want to go through it?
emphasize two things. One, it's anonymous. Tim and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't get
Yeah.
to see who
Gotta
is
vote.
filling this out. So fill it out because you'll have more fun if you take a guess,
Yeah.
and you have a 33% chance of getting it right. Number two, there's a brave soul here who picked other, and I'd love for the
All right.
other to say
Yeah.
what other you think it is, and somebody else might benefit from learning from your
Yeah.
choice, because you thought that it was something else, and we wonder what it is. So if you are willing to share what your other is, please do let us know. And I'm
Yeah.
going to end the poll now
Let's see
and
what we have.
yeah, show the results. So 14% Tim thought that it was Pinot Grigio,
Yeah.
68% thought it was Chenin Blanc,
Yeah.
and 14% at Sauvignon Blanc, and then 4% at other.
Okay.
So what do you think, Tim?
Well, good work for everybody. I mean, first of all, process of elimination. The wine doesn't have pyrazines, right? It can't be Sauvignon Blanc. It just can't. Okay. And then Maria says too high acid for Pinot Grigio, in my opinion. And Maria, you're absolutely right. So Pinot Grigio, yeah, I mean, a friend of mine called Pinot Grigio the Toyota Camry of white wine. He said, it's going to get you there. No one's life is going to be changed. But Pinot Grigio is really, for a semi-aromatic grape, it's not really showy, it's not. So you've got a little bit of terpenes and flowers, least contact, a little bit of phenolic bitterness, and you got some, apple and pear and the citrus fruit. Yeah. So with that, Chenin Blanc, simply because of the chalky minerality and the phenolics and the really high acid and the ripe fruit at the same time, good call on that. Good deductive call. Okay.
Okay.
And hey, I've owned Toyota Camrys, so I'm not bashing Toyota Camrys. They're good cars. They last a
All
long time.
right. So
Okay.
let's see how right we are. And I noticed that majority was in Europe. So let's see if we're right.
Yeah, let's see where we are. All right, we're going to get on Li Meng's Learjet, and we're going to fly, and we're going to do an overnight nap, flight, so everybody can get their blankies after we've had plenty of champagne, yeah, and hors d'oeuvres. And we are going to go to France, and we're going to go to the Loire Valley. We're going to go to the Touraine, into a small family-owned domain that's called Domaine de Mouton Noir. And Mouton Noir, yes, means black sheep. Okay. Yeah, family owned. This is Vouvray, and it's 12.5% alcohol, which is lower than you would usually find it. And what else about it? 100% Chenin Blanc. The vines are 25 to 50 years old. This is done in large cooperage, and really it's polish finding and filtration. Not much is going on here. This is a really great example. If anything, it makes me wonder 2022. Usually, Vouvrays are a little bit riper and have more fruit than this, and this is really a streamlined, very elegant, refined version. So yeah. William is asking, does Vouvray have more residual sugar? Yeah, often, William, it does. I mean, you've got demi-sec for slightly sweet, but depending on the vintage, and it's all about the vintage. And that's why I'm saying 2022, maybe not a really warm vintage there, because more often than not, you do get Vouvray with some residual sugar. Yeah. Jerry is saying, you mentioned chalky soil. And yes, Jerry, you're absolutely right. Tufo soil, which is volcanically boiled chalk. All right. There is the Bouton Noir Vineyards, Chenin Blanc, lovely place. Been there a long time ago. And there is Julien Martin, who is the owner and winemaker. He's kind of a one-guy show. Well, he and his wife, I mean, they do pretty much everything. So great wines, good example. Well,
Mhm.
all right, so let's go on to wine two, and now for something completely different. So everybody, Li Meng's going to hold up the glass. I want you to take a look at yours. So the wine's definitely yellow, but guess what? Yeah, but take a look at the color, especially compared to the other two white wines. It's brassy color. Yeah, brassy cause and effect means what? Skin contact. Yeah, we will find out. And then our questions here. Is this grape variety that the wine was made from? Is it semi-aromatic or fully aromatic? We'll find out. And by that, I mean, how floral is it? That's what defines those two things. And then what are the most important non-fruit markers? That's really paramount always. And then I want you to think about the wine structure. Okay, what else about it? The wine's clear, there's no sediment floating around, but notice when you swirl the glass, you can either do this or you can do that. My goodness. Okay, alcohol's high. Or there's residual sugar because half my glass is on vacation. It's not happening. Okay. And so cause and effect, my expectations are what? Really ripe fruit or residual sugar or dry extract. Okay. All three of those things. And I'm going to be able to smell and probably figure out pretty quickly. So let's get to the nose. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. So it's not too often that you smell a white wine that where the fruit is almost overripe. Yeah. Well, first of all, the wine is clean. It's really well made. It is powerful in terms of the intensity scale. And that has to do with the ripeness of the fruit, but also the quality of the fruit. Because what leaps out to me, many things are shouting for attention at the same time. It's like a room full of kids. First of all, there's botrytis character in this, okay? Hence the color, deeper color. And I know that there's honey, there's honeysuckle, there's like saffron, it's almost like orange marmalade, but there's really ripe. It's like peach preserves and apricot and like golden apples, and it's really ripe fruit. And the citrus that is there is sweet. It's like navel orange and tangerine and things like that, okay? Also beyond that, what else is there? All those botrytis things. All right, so you might think, Tim, this is going to be sweet wine. We will see. We must be patient. Okay. What else? There's a little bit of anise seed and chive, but from there, the wine is really earthy too. Okay. What I'm missing totally is oak. Okay. And I want you to think about Rombauer Chardonnay. Do we have anything that resembles that as far as new oak? The answer is no, there's not. There could be used oak, and we're going to be able to taste that if it's there. Okay. Maria says pineapple. Yeah. Bob says, does botrytis get categories in the year column? No. Botrytis gets categories in fruit quality column. Okay. Earth and mineral are things like mushrooms and potting soil and truffles and minerals, things like that. Okay. Anybody else got questions? Da, 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 da. I think we're good. A fresh box of crayons. Yes, but Amanda, how many? Was it the 64 crayon box, which I coveted when I was about 6 years old? Okay, let's taste it. Mmm. Okay. All right. The wine does not disappoint. And compared to the Vouvray, not a lot of acid. But what there is even more that was in the Vouvray is phenolic bitterness. Okay. So I would describe this as full body. It is slightly sweet. Off-dried is slightly sweet. The alcohol is high. I'm jumping ahead of the structure, but the fruit is really ripe here. It's definitely botrytis, and I want to make that point because I thought, oh wow, botrytis means sweet wine. Not all the time, and here it doesn't. So this has got a lot of skin contact, and maybe that's contributing to old phenolic bitterness. Gillian says round and boxing. Yeah, I would agree. It's round, it's rich, it's just a little bit ungainly because it could use some acidity, or it could use some vitamin P, some pork. Yes, I think
Sure.
that would be splendid with it. Okay, I'm going to taste it again. Hmm. Yeah, I will say that this is very concentrated, so the fruit quality is it's good. It's really quite good. The yield is probably lower, and this is from a good producer. No idea. Any pasillage used, Daniel Elk, and I'll explain that. That is fruit that is left on the vines for so long it is dried, and the canes of the vines themselves have hardened. And so that usually happens in November, December. Daniel, I would say that no, because with think Recioto wines and really dried grape wines like Soave, rich, those are Pisillage type wines. Okay, all right. Describe the wine structure.
Tim,
High
I have,
alcohol.
sorry,
What's
I have
that?
one question. I get this like funk on the nose. What is that?
Well, that's frankly, those are big barrels, and the wine. Think about what stainless steel wine is like, and this wine is not squeaky clean. It's done in really big barrels.
Ah,
Maria says the finish has a petting zoo thing
the
going.
petting zoo. I get the petting zoo.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I have other memories of petting school, like when like the goats totally went berserk with my kids when they got food. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Not good. Skunk. So maybe there's a little bit of reductive sulfur-like thing going on here, but I don't think that's the main event. The main event here is, you've got a drier wine with botrytis with no acidity and skin contact. So it's a semi-aromatic grape. Those are the most important things for cause and effect. So let's go to the poll, and everybody take a look at these. So you've got Grüne Veltliner from Austria, no doubt. You've got Pinot Gris, and by the way, you can have big, big Pinot Grüne Veltliners, the Schmaragds from Wachau, Pinot Gris, and then you've got Chardonnay. Chardonnay, of course, can be this color very easily. So Austria, France, Australia, and California. Maria, I think we did it all. High alcohol, medium acid, and then I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, or just medium phenolic bitterness. Okay? And yeah, all right. So everybody vote. Tell us what you think.
And can you, as people are voting, can you explain your sort of rationale when you pick different varieties? Is it a tricking mechanism that is in
Mm,
play here? How do you
no.
decide what varieties to put for
Oh, you
people to
mean the
guess?
tasting?
No,
Yeah.
like
How
these
did I
these
pick these
choices.
wines? Yeah,
Yeah.
I picked these wines all to show cause and effect, but also impact compounds. Yeah. And also, I wanted to show certain things, combinations of things. In fact,
Mm,
the last three slides are a wrap up, and then I'll tell you the method to the madness, because there is actually an overall Jenga type puzzle
yeah,
to the flight. Yeah. All right. So
that's great.
let's see what we got. How did
All right,
people?
I'm gonna
I think
end the
people are going
poll.
to do really good with this. I think
Yeah.
so. Well, okay, Gruneveltliner. Everybody, Gruneveltliner needs pepper, and it needs all sorts of those botanicals like radish and celery and daikon and celery seed and those kind of things. And you know what? We don't have any of that here. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
all, botrytis dried type fruit. Okay, so Pinot Gris is the good choice here. Chardonnay, not so much. In fact, this would be a weird Chardonnay if it was Chardonnay, although they do exist. So let's get on the Learjet.
Sorry,
We don't have far to
Tim,
go.
just as we're getting onto the plane, I think it'd be great for you to explain why Chardonnay isn't a good choice. And Maria also threw in Semillon.
Okay. So, all right. So Chardonnay, first of all, Chardonnay, I would expect to have oak. This would be oxidized Chardonnay. This would not be a good example. Okay. I mean, even the color alone. And Chardonnay is not phenolic. It's just not. Okay. Thinner skin grape. And then a Semillon is richer, it is waxier, and it has higher acidity. Okay. It's got a very distinctive texture that is waxy and rich, and the acid is definitely higher than Pinot Gris. Does it have color like this? Not necessarily. Yeah. Okay. Pinot Gris before analysis. Good call, Jerry. Crazy that you and considered less oaky Viognier, not. But and I just want to say, remember this, semi-aromatic grapes. So now we've got two of them, right? Fully aromatic grapes should come off like a whoopee cushion of the nose. You should put your nose in the glass and go, oh my God, that's a lot of flowers. So there you go. All right, let's see where we are. We are in Alsace, right? At one of the best family-owned domains that's been around for hundreds of years. This is Familia Ugel. This is their classic Pinot Gris. This is a banker. You should pray that you get this wine in a blind tasting because it really can't be too many other things, right? And you've got botrytis markers, you've got a brassy color, you've got really ripe fruit, high alcohol, not a lot of acidity, and quite a bit of phenolic bitterness, and botrytis markers for a drier wine. Okay, all right, so great example of this. This is one that you should buy and taste on the regular if you're getting ready for an exam. I have used this in classes and beyond. Yeah, so good stuff.
Mhm. And Tim, the Pinot Grigio grape, that Pinot Gris grape, that's a
Yeah.
red grape.
No,
Or
it's
okay.
it's it's a gris, Gris grape, as in Pinot Gris. So the
Mhm.
skins, if you've ever seen clusters of Pinot Gris grapes, they are pink and gray. And
Mhm.
you could make rosé with this wine. Yeah, you
Mhm.
could if you
Mhm.
left it in long enough. Easy to make orange wine. And so Maria says, and Maria, it's a good point. So ginger is a botrytis marker. So good call on your part. Okay. Jerry says he did get the wine in a blind tasting and certified sommelier exam. Ha! I'm
Yeah.
glad you got it. Okay, there's a Hugel estate. I love their wines because they are so pure and so such great examples of their varietal, but they definitely speak to Alsace. And there is the Famille Hugel, Marc
Mhm.
Andre, and Marc Hugel. And delicious wines. Big fan of their wines. Okay, let's get to wine number three. And now for something really different. Okay, so let's take wine number three and Lee Meng's going to do the color for you, but notice the wine now is just yellow. Compare it to the Pinot Gris now and see how brassy the Pinot Gris was. So what does that mean, cause and effect? Not really skin contact going on here. Or, yellow meaning probably some oak, we'll see. Or maybe the wine's a little bit older, okay? What else about it? I'm asking you then, same question in the previous two wines. Is it semi-aromatic or fully aromatic? And remember, that's how terpenic or floral it is. And then one of the most important non-fruit markers, and was the wine aged in oak? And let's find out. Okay, so swirl the glass because we want to check out the alcohol. Okay, all right, so my glass, yeah, half of it is very stubborn and won't come down. The other half is very thick tears, slow moving. Alcohol high or residual sugar in terms of cause and effect. Let's go ahead and smell it. And I'll just give you a few seconds to check it out. All righty. So I was just talking about whoopee cushions, okay? This wine is really floral, okay? Now, I want you to go back. I'm going to do a little cheating. Go back, pick up glass one, pick up the Vouvray. Smell the Vouvray really quick. Yeah, and there's some flowers here, white flowers. Yeah. Now pick up glass three. Okay, it's not quite 11. I think it's like 8.5 or 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. It's very floral. Okay. So it means what? Cause and effect. It's a fully aromatic grape, whatever it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and smell the rest of it. It's like you have to push, you go walking through a floral shop to get to the back and you have to get the lilacs out of the way. Yeah. All right. Beyond that, there's a lot of fruit going on here. There is stone fruit. It's like yellow peach, apricot. What else is there? Sweet citrus, orange, tart citrus, lime, maybe key lime. There's like yellow apples as well, maybe some really mushy pears, but it's all really fresh and bright and young. Okay, but also everybody go back to the Pinot Gris and smell it for botrytis fruit. Okay, and also how ripe and overripe. Oh my goodness, how botrytis and overripe fruit as opposed to wine three. Okay, it's just a lot of fruit. Okay, what's missing, everybody? Earth and mineral. Yeah, un poquito if it's there. What there is, though, is a little light spice and toast. My suspicion is that some used oak is used here. Okay, all right. And so there's a ton of flowers, a lot of fruit, very little earth and mineral, and some used oak. Let's taste it. Mm, wow. It's not too often that you taste a wine and the first thing you taste is flowers, but that's really true here. And then there's a lot of fruit behind it. All of that fruit is still here. The oranges, the limes, the peaches, they're white more than yellow. They're a little bit tartar. The apricots, yep. And now it's like red apple. And a lot of fruit. And I'm going to taste it again for earth and for structure. Please do so for science. Mm, okay. All right. Lots of things happening. One, the wine is still floral. Okay. Alcohol, probably around 14%. It's high. Yeah, I can really feel it. The acid, though, is medium plus. So whatever this grape is, it retains acidity. Whereas the Pinot grape, not so much. Yes, salivary glands are working medium plus. Phonolically, it is more. It's got, well, I would say it's at least as much as the Pinot Gris, but notice how the acid carries it and it sharpens the phenolics. Yeah. And then you've got a little bit of texture from used oak on the finish. So what do we have here? We got a lot of flowers, a lot of fruit. What I'm missing, and I didn't mention, it's not on the nose, is the earth and mineral. It's like missing in action. There's really not much there. Okay. All right. With that, that gives you quite a bit to work on. You got a fully aromatic grape that you would put in oak, and there's no earth or mineral. Yep. Okay. And a lot of fruit. So what could it be? Your choices are Chardonnay, Viognier, Gewürztraminer, and the notorious other. And then your places are France, Germany, California, and Australia. So, by process of elimination, get rid of things and then take a look at your choices and what makes the most sense. Okay. And see what you got. All right. And I'll see if there's anything in the question wise. I think we're good.
I think we're good. And I think people from a region standpoint are super confused. I'm not giving
Oh,
anything away
no.
by saying that it's about a 50-50. Oh,
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, that's good because, hey, listen, what's the whole thing? Remember the line from Zootopia? Nobody learns without getting it wrong. And that's
right.
really true with
That's
tasting.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Maria, soap, floral soap. I don't get lychee. Okay. Well, sometimes you don't get lychee or lychee out of aromatic grapes, but sometimes you do. Okay. So, in other words, Maria, I guess what I'm saying is don't use one thing and like go to Albuquerque with it. Have a
All
good
right, I'm going
reason
to
to go
end
to
the poll
Albuquerque.
right now and we're going to share the results.
All
We
right,
have
what do we
70,
got? All right, so yeah, okay, so a lot of people, nobody went
71%
through.
are on Viognier.
Yeah,
25% are on Gewürztraminer. Tim, I'm reading it out for the Zoom recording because they don't see the
sure,
polls.
right.
And then 4% are for Chardonnay. And then in terms of regions, we ended up with, let's see here, 52% in the old world
Yeah,
and or Europe and 46% in the California, Australia bucket, mostly in California.
okay.
Do we want to help people out? At least let's
Yeah,
eliminate
yeah, yeah.
Chardonnay. How is it not Chardonnay here?
Well, Chardonnay never has this much flowers. Never. It just doesn't. And phenolic bitterness. Okay, so we're going to take
Okay.
Chardonnay out. Then we've got a choice between Viognier and Gewürztraminer. And then again, how often do you taste Gewürztraminer with oak? I think, I'm sure there are people in California who use it and shame on them for doing it. And I know that Andre Ostertag in Alsace is the only one who comes to mind who puts aromatic grapes like Gewürztraminer in oak. Otherwise, I can't think of anybody. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, and also how much Viognier and Gewürztraminer? Well, there's some Gewürztraminer grown in Germany. There is, and some pretty good wines made. But again, the acid. Think about the acidity level for this wine. I think about Gewürztraminer like the Pinot Gris being a lower acid wine. Okay, so we've got to go back and do another overnight flight. So aromatic grapes and oak. is Viognier together. Also, the acidity, there's no earth or mineral, so you can't be in Europe. There's really none. And everybody taste the Vouvray. Go ahead, take a sip of the Vouvray. I'm going to. And notice the really chalky minerality in the mushroom. Mm, wow. Okay. And now taste wine three. Taste the Viognier. Mm, there's really nothing there. Yeah, there's almost like a hole. Yeah. So a lot of really pretty fruit. Now on the second, third sip, the oak starts to come up. There's used oak here, fully aromatic grape. And so it's got to be from California or Australia. We are, as a matter of fact, in Santa Barbara County, one of the stalwarts for Rhone grapes and wines for 30 to 40 years. And that's Andrew Murray, who's in Santa Barbara County. This is his Santa Barbara County Viognier. I mean, I first came across Andrew's wines in the early 90s. Yeah. And he was one of the first guys, along with Tablas Creek, along with Coupe, Bob Lindquist, who was making Rhone varieties. He was one of the first guys, and he does it brilliantly. His wines are good. Okay. And Marshall, yes, the viscosity, overwhelming good, Marshall. I really like it. This is a really pretty wine, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so, what would you? I'm thinking, my sommelier brain is looking at this and going, what would I, have with this? And I would probably have a composed salad, something like, salmon with a citrus type vinaigrette or chutney would be really good with this. Yeah. And there's the Curtis Estate, which is the estate vineyards for Andy, and that he's been making both red and white wines for over 35 years. Great stuff.
So, Tim, there's a question from Dina here. How do you recognize old oak? And you did not think that this was old oak, right?
Yeah, I would say, Dina, I tell you what. So, Dina, the best way to really get that down. So I can describe it to you, but that's just blah, blah, blah. What I want you to do, here's your assignment. I want you to get a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc and then pick an Alsace wine. You know what? This or this wine, but pick a really good example. Pick an Alsace Pinot Gris, for example, and then taste them next to each other. And they have a totally different texture. Okay. And if you tasted two or three times next to each other, there's a rounder texture to a wine that's been done in large or, old cooperage that you don't get in stainless steel. Okay. Yeah. So that's how the best way, but also there's some very light spice and some texture along with the phenolic bitterness. So that's my best answer for you. In fact, there's a bit about it in the book. Okay, so Michelle, why the color is so light for Viognier? Michelle, probably because it's a younger wine, and also it didn't see new oak. That's my guess. Jerry, would the floral intensity drive you strongly to California? No, not necessarily. So Jerry, I'm going to say, Jerry, you have to remind me to answer that question after wine five. That's your assignment. You must remember, okay? Fruit dominant brings you to the new world, but I will tell you that even, Condrieu, really expensive Northern Rhone Viognier that's done in expensive oak, really has a lot of fruit also. The variety just does. Okay, there's Andy Murray, great guy, and I've known him for a long time. So, all right, let's get to the red wines. Okay, first up, wine number four, our questions. Take a look at the depth of color, cause and effect. You're asking yourself, what kind of grape was this made from? Thinner skin, thicker skin. Yeah. And you can see through it. What else about it? What are the most important non-fruit aromas and flavors? Okay, always important. And then finally, describe the structure of the wine, especially the quality of the tannins and the kinds of tannins. Okay. I would describe this as a medium minus ruby with a very light faded, almost pink rim heading towards salmon. I can read through it, but note that it's hazy. The wine's unfiltered. It's unfined and unfiltered. Okay, so cause and effect, you note that and you say, okay, what? Thinner skin, red grape, unfined, unfiltered, log that. Okay, let's get to the nose. Okay, lots of stuff going on here. First of all, the wine is ostensibly clean and well made. I would say that there is a little bit of Brettanomyces going on here. Okay, If you're sensitive to it, you're probably doing make it stop. But there's on the Brett scale, it's about a 1.5, not quite 2. So there's definitely Brett. So it's not squeaky clean, which I'm okay with. Context important. Second of all, what else about it? The aromatic intensity is moderate. So again, thinner skin grape, cause and effect, probably a cool climate because the fruit is red, practically all red. What am I getting here? Wild strawberries, cranberries, red cherries, um, things that are really tart and red and underripe. Okay, there's a little dark fruit here. There are savory things as well. This to me reminds me of I don't know, cranberries and Earl Grey tea. So there's bergamot, there's black tea, there's orange peel. Maybe it's constant common. Who knows? There's earthiness, and it's kind of like a clay with leaves and a little bit of Brettanomyces, and then there is oak toast. But again, I think this is not new wood. This is used wood, okay? And we're going to taste if it's there. All right. So let's everybody taste it, please. And again, it smells like, my expectations, okay? I'll tell you before I taste it, I'm thinking thinner skin grape, cooler climate, red fruit dominant, higher acid, less alcohol, more savory things versus fruity things, and probably earthy because it smells really earthy. And we'll see. Okay. Hmm. That's really nice wine. Okay. But notice I'm squinting. Why? Two things. Acid, medium plus, maybe medium plus plus. Also, the wine is bone dry and it's stemmy. So we got some stem tannin going on here, okay? Which means whatever this is, whole cluster fermentation and stem tannins, or else a fermentation where they're literally putting stems in because they want more tannin and structure, which means it's a grape that doesn't naturally give you a lot of tannins. And even with the tannins, we're jumping ahead to structure. Notice the tannins are moderate at best. The acid is up. The alcohol is like really moderate at best. This is 12.5, 13% alcohol. And as a result, this wine was made from grapes that didn't get ripe, which means a cooler climate and a thinner skin grape. All those things, yeah? What else do we need to say about it? It still has all those savory things. A little bit of anise on the finish. There's that black tea thing. What else? There's orange peel, dried orange peel. There's dried rose petal that I forgot to mention on the nose. It's a really complex wine, but notice it's a complex wine without being heavy or tannic. And it's elegant. But at the same time, it's a wine that needs food, okay? And that alone should take you to one place versus another. It's bone dry, acidic, earthy, really earthy and complex. Okay. All right, so let's see the poll. Let's see what we got. All right, here we are. So your choices are Pinot Noir, a Grenache or Grenache blend, Sangiovese. Okay. Now, all three of those, I want to point out, are thinner skin red grapes. You might not think that about Grenache, but it's, thinner skin. Which region? Well, obviously, if you pick Sangiovese, you're in Italy, probably Tuscany. If you pick France, that could be Pinot Noir or Grenache. If you're in California, it could be all three of those things, many more. And Australia, same thing as well. Okay. All right. So vote. Tell us what you think, and we'll see what we have. Yeah. But going back to this,
It's a gorgeous wine.
it's really my thing. Well, I'll save it until after the conclusion. But yeah.
I just know that when we were bottling this wine, everyone was so excited about it because it just tasted so good, so fresh.
Yeah, yeah. But also, and I'll say it now, there's not a lot of oak on it, and the
Mhm.
wine is so good. So I have thoughts about that. Okay. But let's see what we have. Let's see how people voted.
Yeah, I like how after the warm up, everyone is really fast. So thank you guys all for your participation. And Gillian, I like your comment. It is hard. It is really hard to nail down. I think Tim, you've definitely helped us a lot
Yeah.
here.
Yep. Okay. So
So
Gillian,
yeah.
it's quacking like a duck. Okay. So don't overthink it. Okay. So a lot of people went Pinot Noir. I'm glad that's where you should have gone. Grenache blend, yeah, Grenache blend, and again, I'm only going to give you classic examples. I'm giving you fastballs, okay? So certainly, I can think of. I'm trying to think of the producer that's in Santa Barbara County that makes beautiful Grenache, but it's more like Pinot Noir. God, what's her name? God, it just flew out the window. Okay, and then Sangiovese. Sangiovese, I want grape tannin and I want acid, and I want a wine that's dry and aggressive. And yeah, and this is not. So it's not Sangiovese, not a Grenache blend, and it is Pinot Noir. And tribute to Grace, yeah, who said that? Marshall, home run, buddy. That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, and there's such really pretty wines. Okay, so this is indeed Burgundy, right? And this is from a really good producer, but my comment about it being so good but not a lot of oak, it means what in the hierarchy of Burgundy quality? It means like it's probably a Bourgogne from a really good producer, which is exactly what it is. Okay.
So,
Uh,
Tim, the Jerry question here, I chose Pinot Noir because Gamay was not a choice. So, if Gamay was a choice, which we didn't trick you, Jerry,
yes.
what would you have done to distinguish between Gamay
I
and
say,
this, you know?
okay, so Gary, think about, and again, I'm trying to use testable wines here. Okay. And so if I was going to use Gamay, it's going to be Beaujolais Village, which is going to have carbonic, or it's going to be Beaujolais Cru, which is going to be a richer, deeper colored wine, which might have carbonic, maybe not, but more fruit than this. This wine is Venice. It has fruit, but it has more savory qualities and acid and stem tannin. Okay. Marshall, our region, yeah, that's a totally different animal. Different clones and different character. So we are indeed in Burgundy. We're in a really good producer, Frédéric Magnan. And this is Coteau Bourguignon. So this is his Bourgogne, and it's just superb. And look at that, you can actually afford it. I saw I saw the price for Domaine Le Fleuve Bourgogne Blanc the other day, and it was $120 a bottle wholesale. And I just went, ay, ay, ay. Anyway, so this is retail $35, and I think it's a beautiful bottle of wine. Okay. Ah, that's really good. And there is the Pinot Noir vineyards of Banyan. Fantastic stuff. Okay. If it quacks like a duck, yes. All right. And there he is, Frederic. And let's get to wine five. And now for something completely different. And I think two of you at least, I'm reminding you that you have to ask me about this winemaker and winery after we're done. Okay. I think, Jerry, you're one of them. And Gillian, you may be the other one. Okay. So let's get to it. So, wine number five. So Li Meng is showing you the color, but tilt it over and notice, you know what? You can see through it. Thinner skin grape again. Okay. And here's our question. I want you, for me, as you smell and taste the wine, consider what's the condition of the fruit. Okay. What is it? Tart, ripe, overripe, raisinated, etc. Once again, what are important non-fruit aromas and flavors? And then finally, how would you describe the structure of the wine? Okay. So again, I'm going to say that this is, yeah, it's medium ruby, lightens up to a really pretty pink color. I can easily read through my glass and then swirl it and, okay. What's going on? K, as we would say in New Mexico. Okay. The alcohol is high. So we've got a thinner skin red grape with high alcohol. That's important. We're talking cause and effect. Immediately, you should be thinking, okay, well, here's my family of thinner skin red grapes. We just had Pinot Noir. Okay. All right. Let's go into the nose. Okay.
So, Tim, you shouldn't say that because we had two Pinot Noirs back to back last time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I know. And yeah, and listen, the peanut gallery was not happy that day. I can't blame you. Okay. All right. So if I had to describe this in like a sentence, this is strawberry jam with black pepper and mint. Okay. That's
Mhm.
what I've got. I've got really ripe red fruits. It's like strawberry jam. And there's a little rhubarb underneath. There's almost no dark fruit. It's like bean cherries and it's black pepper and there's a little bit of wild mint,
Mhm.
right? And then there's some oak, some really light vanilla and spice to it. What's missing is there's really no earth or mineral to speak of. So everybody go back and taste the Bourgogne again, just smell it. And notice how earthy the wine is. I mean, it's profoundly earthy. right? It's like leaves and clay and dirt. Yeah. I pick glass 5 up and no, it's not. Okay. In fact, that's if I look at my notes, I just covered everything. Yeah. Yeah. There's a little bit of green savory herb, vanilla, spice. Okay. All right. So let's taste it and remember what the legs and tears, what they're still doing, and see if my premonition about the alcohol. Maria Valletta, I think, yeah, maybe a tiny bit, but for me, yeah. All right. So taste it. Mm, okay. That's pretty yummy. It's comfort food wine. This is like cheeseburger wine. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna say the wine is full bodied.
Mhm.
Interesting for a thinner skin grape. Yeah. And the alcohol, I feel it right here. It's like not Grey Goose, which is full body, but it's definitely here. It's 14.5 or 15. It's down here. The fruit is still ripe. Tartens up a little bit. There's a little bit of cranberry, but this is strawberry jam, black pepper on the finish, mint on the finish, used oak. There's a little texture. Who was asking about used oak up here? I'm trying to find her. Okay, so this is a good example of used oak. Okay, I'm sorry I lost you, but again, this is good example. All right, so alcohol is high, acid. Notice just barely medium plus. The tannins medium. In fact, the tannins are almost in the same level as the Pinot Noir. Okay, the finish is long. This is really a well put together wine. It's not life changing. In fact, the Bourgogne is more complex by a long shot, but it's really quite well made. Okay, with that, here are your choices: Gamay, Zinfandel, Grenache blend, or other. And then your choices are France, Spain, and you're thinking Spain, what? Well, where do you think Grenache is from? Garnacha. Okay. And then California and Australia. Okay. I would just say for me, the deciding factor to me here is how polished the wine is and how good the tannin management is. Okay. And I'll get back to that. And yes, quack quack. Okay.
Tim, is there Greek in this, in your opinion?
If it is, it's to me, it's not very much. Not very much. Yeah, I see where you're going. But yeah,
Mhm.
Maria says cough syrup notes. Yeah, this is like Luden's cherry cough drops. Maria, good call.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Uh, okay, everyone's kind of thrown their wow. I'll tell you this on the regions is pretty split down even.
Oh
So
no. All right, let's see what we got.
this is interesting. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. We have 72% on
Oh,
Grenache,
mercy. Okay, good. That's good.
14% apiece on Zinfandel and Gamay. So we'll
Yeah,
need to explain that.
yeah,
But in terms of region, we've
yeah.
got,
We're gonna get there. We're gonna
yeah,
get
we're going
there.
to get
Okay,
there.
so
Yeah.
all right, so let's start with the grape varieties. First of all, Gamay. If this was Gamay, it would be Gamay on steroids. Okay. I've never had Gamay. I think maybe once that was 14 and a half alcohol, but also this is just really ripe strawberry jam. Zinfandel, why isn't it Zinfandel? And I'm telling you guys right now, Zinfandel is a grape does not ripen evenly. Okay, so any Zinfandel you're going to get, by and large, it has really ripe fruit and really tart fruit in the same glass of wine. Okay, it definitely has the pepper and the savory herbs, and tannin level maybe a little bit more. And for me, what's missing and what Zinfandel did I had? A Klein Zinfandel on Tuesday, and it smelled like peach yogurt, okay, which is very common, but it was also more herbal. And this has mint too, which takes me to a place. Okay, so we're Grenache blend. Now, everybody who called France and Spain, go back and taste the Bourgogne. Do it now. Pick it up, taste it, hold in your mouth 5 to 7 seconds. Notice how acidic it is. Notice how earthy it is. If you go to France or Spain, the wine's got to have major league earthiness. That's all there is to it. Because if there's not enough there, you can't be convinced to go to Europe. You got to go somewhere else. Okay. And if I taste this, hmm, there's just no earth and mineral, but there's almost none. Okay. So you are in a new world other than Europe place. And then the question is, okay, California, Australia. Okay. My comment about the tannin management was on purpose. The Australians do tannin management in red wine better than anyone. I think that's my opinion. So if I taste a wine that's that big, rich, and has that alcohol, and it doesn't have tannin, and the tannins are very fine, I think Australia, and mint, by the way, also. Okay. All right. So let's see where we are. Once again, we're like zigzagging the globe to bring you
Uh,
wines. All right,
I
so
was,
this is a wine. I have a feeling that some of you are going to go do the Dylan Thomas thing, rage against the dying of the light. But this is a wine that's actually used in exams. It's a classic wine you should know. And frankly, once you taste it once or twice, it's kind of hard to forget. Okay, because of the things that it doesn't have. And yeah, it's similar to Zinfandel. I think that's about as close as you can get, but it doesn't have things that Zinfandel has. We are in South Australia, in the Barossa, in one of the great family-owned wineries, Yalumba, in one of my very favorite winemakers on planet Earth, and that's Louisa Rose, incredibly talented. And yeah, Yalumba, this is their Bush Vine Grenache Samuel's collection. They make several different Grenache, pure Grenache wines. They also make great GSMs, Grenache Shiraz Mourvedre. So we're the Barossa. There is the label. Look at the price. This is a really great value wine. And then let's see a picture of Louisa. Oh, that's notice well the bush vines. Okay, as in bush
oh yeah,
vines.
I
And
can
there's
show you.
Louisa Rose. She's not only the winemaker for Yalumba, she's the winemaker for Puseyville. So not only does she make wines for, a large family-owned winery. But Pusey Vale, to me, probably the best dry Rieslings in Australia, you know? So, and not only that, something that, in fact, it's funny, when Li Meng and I were putting this flight together, I first requested Yalumba Viognier because Yalumba, the winery, makes more Viognier than any other winery on planet Earth. And they do it about as well as anyone. And she is great at Viognier. So she's just, Hancock, she's your hero. Yeah, she's a rock star. She really is. She's amazing. Okay.
We have
All
we
right.
have used Yalumba. I just want to explain to the subscribers. You might have seen Yalumba a number of times because a lot of our selection master sommeliers and wine experts love picking Yalumba. It's just a winery with a lot of
Amen.
integrity, and they happen to have a really good distributor in the United States in
Yeah.
Winebow. So it
Yeah.
makes buying from them so much easier. But I don't think we've ever shown their Grenache before.
Yeah. I've been to the winery 3 times and I like everything they make. And the thing is, there are Australian wineries who are just, they excel at making good wine at every price point, and they are one of them, right? So, okay, now we'll go to wine six and for something totally different. Okay. All right. First of all, let's questions so I don't forget them. Most important non-fruit aromas and flavors. And you know what? There's a lot of them in this wine. Number two, how would you describe the quality of the tannins? And then the question here is like the question is, where's Waldo? Where am I? What dominates the wine? Fruit, earth mineral, or balance of both? We'll see. Taking a look at the wine, okay, and Li Meng's going to do that for you. This is deep ruby. Notice you can't see through it. So it's a thicker skinned grape. First two red wines, thinner skinned grapes, thicker skinned grape. I'd call this a very deep ruby, and it's got like a pink purple fuchsia rim. Yeah. And then you would expect, and it's true, the wine stains the glass. Cause and effect, thicker skinned grape, more pigmentation color in the skins, hence staining the tears. All right, on the nose, and I'll give you a few to check it out because lots going on. Wow. Okay. All right. I'll just give you a few before I start leading the witnesses. This to me the most complex wine of the flight. Okay. So I'm going to start. Where shall we start? First of all, I know asking if it's clean or not. No, there's definitely Brettanomyces here. Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, 2, 2.5. I don't find it objectionable. I know that because there's kind of barnyardy, earthy, leathery going on. There's also dried violets and roses for floral. The fruit is predominantly dark, but there's dark and red fruit. So there is black currants, blackberries, black plums that are fresh, evolving, and tart. And then there are red currants and red cherries. That pretty much covers the fruit. There's also a little blueberry. It's like dried blueberries. Yeah. Otherwise than that, it's green. Yeah, pronounced green. So it's like dried green bell peppers and green herbs, savory green herbs. It's like chervil, chives, even basil, dried basil, you know? And what else? There is mushrooms, turn soil, um, leaves, dried leaves, is profoundly earthy. Okay. Jerry Collins, do I detect mint? Yeah, I could go for mint, Jerry, with all the savory stuff happening. Sulfur wine six, for me, Maria, not too much. I think there's more breadth than anything.
Okay.
There's also oak, and there's noticeable used new oak on this. So this is a mix probably 30-40% new, 60-70% used. But I get it's cocoa and like toast and smoke and like coffee beans. Yeah. All right. So that's a lot of stuff, right? But I want you
Mhm.
to think about cause and effect. So we've got that many things happening, right? Notice the ripeness of the fruit is ripe, but not overripe, like the Grenache. So the climate you should be thinking about, all right? Please taste it. Wow. Okay. Hmm. Wow. All right. Where to begin? I'm going to start with the structure and work backwards. So everybody, we taste it again. Maria says acidity. Yeah. All right. So acid is medium plus. And Maria, you may be thinking it's higher, but if you do, everybody be thinking, oh my God, there's acidity. Taste the Burgundy again because it's got higher acid. The alcohol, notice, medium plus.
Mhm.
That's about it. The tannins, medium plus. Yeah. And notice that there are oak tannins in the back. It's literally like it's like bitter espresso. Same kind of tannins. I've got some grape tannins in the front. Yeah. But on a scale of 1 to 10, this is about a 6, medium plus tannins. Yeah. And then, all right. And then the finish is really quite long. This complex wine. Okay. So now let's confirm everything. So the fruit to me got a little tartar. So the dark fruit still dominates, but it's black currants. It is blackberries, black raspberries, dark fruit with acid. More red fruit. I'd add cranberry to the sour cherry and red currant. What else is there? Green, 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 green. Yeah, so it's savory herbs. It's like dried green bell pepper. It reminds me actually of my mom's stuffed bell peppers when I was a kid. Long story, won't go there. Anyway, and just green stuff. What earthy, profoundly earthy. Yeah, it's like turn soil, mushrooms, leaves, dried leaves. And then the oak frames the wine. It really gives the wine shape, and the wine is long. This is really, and this is wine. We poured it out a little bottle. If you were going to drink a bottle of this wine, a couple of thoughts. Number one, I decant it and let it sit there for an hour, and then I'd want to have some protein with fat and salt with it, because at this stage of the game, it needs time to open it up, but it needs something to match the intensity. Okay, this is a wine of really good quality. Yeah. All right. So here are your choices: Gamay, Sangiovese, or Merlot blend. I think we're gifting you something here. So Italy, France, and California and Australia are your choices. Gillian says leafy. I agree. All right. So everybody, why don't you vote? This is one of those where you pour the rest of your bottle in a glass and then,
Just let
come
it
back
sit.
to it. Come back to it in about an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that folks, I say this all the time, but on these three reds, you have to have all three glasses all poured out and keep comparing between the three. Tim, you've gone sort of like that medium plus acid with high acid on the four
Yeah.
and the six. That was really helpful. But even like the mintiness, when you
Yeah.
talk about the Australian mint on the five and this one that we have right now, it's a different kind. I cannot forget Maria's comment on the cough syrup because of it. It's so distinctive.
Right. And I just went back and tasted the Burgundy, and oh my God, it's just so bone dry and acidic. And the
Mm.
alcohol is left. It's like a hissing sound, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
Wow.
Tim,
Okay.
in the beginning, and sorry, as people are filling it out, in the beginning, I'm going to ask a question about tannins. You said that there were oak tannins here. Do
Mhm.
you get the grape tannins, and do
Yeah.
you also get the stem tannins, I think you said?
No, 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 no. And thanks for bringing that up. So everybody, for me, and it's different with different people, but generally speaking, oak tannins are in the back, grape tannins in the front, stem tannins, and I just tasted the Burgundy again, and everybody tastes the Burgundy again. And the mid palate is absolutely green, and it's like you're sucking on a twig. Yeah. So the stem tannins. Um, and then now, once you taste the Burgundy, come back to wine six, okay, and see what you think. And you can see the quality of the tannins just different, and also how much more fruit six has than four. Okay. All right. Let's see what we have.
All right. Let's share the poll results. 70% are on Merlot, 30% on Sangiovese.
Yeah.
And in terms of regions, I think that mirrors it. 58% are on France, 31% on Italy, but we do have a 12% on California. Maybe start there. How is it not California?
Well, everybody, all of those who voted for California, taste the Grenache again. Taste the Grenache, and notice how there's no earth or mineral. Okay, and certainly California wines, some of them have earth and mineral. In fact, more than a few do, but not like the Burgundy or this wine six. Okay, now in terms of Sangiovese, well, let me put it this way. I made a point of emphasizing how green the wine is. And green is pyrazines, right? So bell pepper and chives and chervil and basil and mint and all those stuff, that's pyrazines. Right. So once again, we're going to rack up the miles here because we're going right back to Europe. And this time we're going to Bordeaux. And we're going to go to the right bank. Okay. So again, because if you got to Bordeaux, good for you. And then the question that you were left with is how tannic is the wine? Okay. And we said, well, yeah, it's got medium plus tannins, but Cabernet Sauvignon based blends are still pretty tannic wines. So we are in Saint-Emilion on the right bank in the Libournais. And this is a small property called La Chapelle au Mois. There's actually a chapel that's several hundred years old that faces the property. And this is 70% Merlot. I'm going to put my cheat sheet away. 70% Merlot in this vintage. Where is it? There it is. 70%, 15% Cabernet Franc, 9% Cabernet Sauvignon, unusual, and 6% Malbec. Okay. So a little bit of Cabernet there, but the wine is just not tannic and doesn't have enough grip for you to go to the left bank in the Medoc. Really complex wine. Look at the price. Unbelievable. Okay. Yeah. Any thoughts on this, everybody? So did you like it? Yum yum. Well, Gary, yeah, okay, so Jerry is saying Cabernet Sauvignon, maybe Cab Franc because of predominant grapes because of the mint. But think about, to me, in the Pyrzine scale, if I think about all the Cabernet family grapes, Jerry, I think of Merlot and Cabernet Franc being the most pyrazinic, and then Cabernet Sauvignon, and then Malbec being the least, right? Because if you think about Argentina and Mendoza Malbec, rarely are those very greenish type wines. Yeah, they're not. Okay.
Tim, I have to
Uh,
agree with Melissa. Her
yeah, me
comment,
too. Lots of
yeah,
Cabernet Franc. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. For
yeah.
the price, I think it's just really, really well made wine. Okay. Okay, so Jerry likes the flight. Jerry, I have to agree with you. So everybody, in terms of favorite wines from the flight, I don't know. There's some really good wines. Um,
I would say, Jerry, you can buy more of the kit, and that way you can have,
there you go.
yeah. So this kit is still available for sale. We made more of Tim's kits because he's so popular even after the webinar. So if you want it, we have it. Thank you so much for the flight. Now, Tim, there's so much that goes into why you choose what you
Yeah, yeah,
chose.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
So I think it'd be great for you to explain that.
Sure. What I wanted to do here with the white wines was show semi-aromatic grapes versus aromatic grapes. With wine too, I want to just show you a wine with botrytis that wasn't a dessert wine. And then with the Vouvray, I wanted to show you a wine that had the sulfur in it, but also had some ripe fruit. But frankly, the alcohol wasn't very high. And I wanted to see if people would take it to Riesling, because of the acidity, which frankly, no one did. Yay. Okay. And then, and let's see, wine three. Wine three, I just wanted to show a fully aromatic grape that had oak. Okay. That's what we wanted to do. And I wanted you to connect, I want you in the future to connect fully aromatic grape, lots of flowers. Oh, there's oak. That's Viognier. Okay. Wine four, stem tannins, thinner skin red grape, and really just, Burgundy. Okay. Because there's really no mistaking wine four for Pinot Noir from other places because it doesn't have as much fruit and it has more savory, earthy qualities and stem tannin. Okay. And then wine five, I thought, and Li Ming actually pushed back, I have to tell you on this a little bit. She says,
Did.
don't you mean you want to use a GSM? And I said, no, I want people to taste a really good Australian Grenache because it's a testable wine. It's a classic wine, but also so they can taste it and think, okay, this is how it's different from Zinfandel, right? Zinfandel, there's a lot of different kinds of fruit. Here, it's almost monochromatic. It's like strawberry jam, and it's mint, and it's got pepper. And also to show how good the tannin management is from a good Australian winery. And then lastly, we needed a red wine with pyrazines, but not Cabernet, not as tannic. So I wanted you to see what a right bank, Merlot type blend that had all the pyrazines you could ask for. It was earthy, and yet at the same time, it wasn't tannic enough for a Cabernet in the left bank. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Tim, I would say it takes me a few whacks over the head for me to
Ah,
acquiesce. But
there was a method to the madness.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
no, no, I appreciate that. But I had the same experience with Madeline where it's like, oh, you got to tell me 5 times. Like that's what I want to do. But I think that when I push back, it's really to understand, and I have the chutzpah in me, as not a master sommelier ever,
Well,
uh, to ask the
is,
question.
we got to get it right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it has
yeah,
to
yeah,
work for everybody. So Melissa has two really good questions. I want to
yeah.
answer them real quick. So Grenache is just strawberry over Shiraz. So Melissa, Shiraz is one of the other grapes that doesn't ripen evenly. But even with Barossa Shiraz, there's not only the pepper you get in Grenache, but there is all what Madeline calls the Jimmy Dean stuff. So there is like soy sauce and what else? Like bacon and like it's just barbecue,
Stick. Yeah.
and you don't get that in Grenache. How's Australian Grenache different from Spain Grenache? It would be not as fruity and much earthier, really earthy. And oak treatment, it depends on the wine. There's a lot of inexpensive Grenache from Spain that is very fruity but very earthy and not a lot of oak. Okay, all right. All right. So here's my advice to you. First of all, again, memorize the grid. Be able to explain to someone. Work on this cause and effect, and take a wine every now and again and take it the whole thing apart from A to Z, and ask yourself, why does it look the way it does, smell the way, taste the way, feel the way, and then finally key on impact, compounds, and structure. If you do those things over time, you're going to be a really good taster. That's all there is to it. Yeah. And
So
there's the book.
I'll say this part so that you don't have to do it yourself. Tim's book, Message in the Bottle, for those of you who bought all 4 kits 2 in advance, you have the book. This is a really important book. It's on Amazon, and Tim's Substack is laugh out loud hilarious. So you definitely want to subscribe to his Substack.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's not only about wine, and I appreciate learning. I feel like I always pull back another piece of the onion when I read your Substack about your life, which is so interesting. So I highly encourage you guys to subscribe to his blog, subscribe to his Substack, and if you haven't got the book, I don't know what you're still doing here. Um, right?
Yeah, and there's the other fun book.
Yeah.
I want to answer Tom's question before we go into the happy half hour. Tom, yes, I will be doing a deductive tasting workshop in Santa Fe in February and a certified exam. And Amanda, if you want to come home, you can take it too. So there you go.
That's awesome. For those of you who do want the downloadable SAT tech sheets, we've created a folder on our Google Drive. So they're always there. These are the tech sheets that the WSET people, Lindsay Young from our Psalm team puts these together so that you have another version of tasting notes to go with. So you can circle up your own little SAT and then compare it with ours, pre-tasting if you like. And we have it for all 6 wines. We'll continue to have these, and eventually these will be a click away on each wine. Um, and so I'll leave that on. And then next, I'm a little scared here, Tim, to be
No, you
honest.
should be. Oh, I'm going to pump this really good. Paul Wagner is a dear friend. I've known Paul for over 30 years. In fact, Paul and I and Paul's wife, Margaret, just spent 2 weeks together in May, going on a river cruise from Amsterdam to Budapest. Amazing trip. Paul knows more about the history of wine and wine marketing than any other person I know in the business. He owned Balzac Communications for over 30 years, a PR company in Napa for wine. And he is incredibly funny and irreverent and an amazing teacher. So I hope you can sign up for this because I'm definitely sitting in. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm a little afraid after talking to him. He's a new friend for me, and
Yeah.
everyone from Evan to you, everyone has talked about him, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
share a lot of friends in common. And my first call with him, I went, "This is could be the best thing that ever happened to you,
Oh, it
or the
will be. Now,
scariest thing."
everybody, it will be so
Yeah,
educational. And
but
he's just like a major league storyteller too. He's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And I will say that I was listening to his audiobook on Audible from San Francisco to Traverse City this summer where I was visiting.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to sleep on the plane because when I got to Traverse City, I had so much to do. And I couldn't stop listening to this. And by the end of the trip, I was like, I got to call up Paul Wagner. We got to do a kit with him because every
Yeah.
chapter just had me enthralled. And, I've been in wines a while and there were stories that I didn't know. So if you have Audible or you don't have Audible, get a
Yeah.
trial,
But he's
listen
written
to
like
this.
5 or 6 murder mysteries too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
He's
Um,
amazing.
I I also want to share for those of you who are not subscribers, here's what's upcoming. We have 173A. We're doing Jimmy Smith again after Paul. So Paul next, and then Jimmy Smith, and then Tim comes back. We ship in December, and we will have the webinar in January, and then Madeline, who's on this call, she'll be on, I'm sure, in a little bit. She is going to be picking the amazing wines. I think her theme is amazing. So Jimmy's doing festive wines for the holidays. Tim, you're doing white wine conclusions coming up.
Yep.
And I love the way Madeline thinks. She gets
Yep.
down to the very basic, the core essence. Is this good wine? And I don't know how many times I stare at a wine and I go, I don't know. Is it? How do I tell? So I love it. And Madeline can tell you more about it.